What if you woke up one morning and the world as you knew it had been turned completely upside down? Imagine every politician, every world leader, every familiar voice of authority simply gone, vanished without a trace. Would it be the dawn of a peaceful new era, free from conflict and control, or the first step into an unimaginable chaos? This is a story that dares to ask that question. We'll journey into a world where the rules have changed overnight, where ordinary people are left to pick up the pieces and decide what comes next. What happens when the architects of society disappear? What choices are made when there's no one left to make the laws? Join us as we explore the silence, the surprises, and the stark realities that unfold in The Day They Disappeared. Chapter 1. The Day They Disappeared. You wake up and it's silent. Not just no alarm silent, but a deep, strange quiet like you'd find far from any city, out in nature. You lie in bed for a moment in the dim morning light, your mind slowly waking. Something feels different, a little off from the world's normal rhythm. This isn't the nice quiet of a Sunday morning. All the usual city sounds are gone. No early cars, no trains, no news alerts on your phone, not even that annoying political ad song. This silence feels wrong, like the world is holding its breath, a bit scary. It's just a quiet morning, you try to tell yourself, but it doesn't feel true. Your hand automatically reaches for your phone. The screen lights up, but it's strangely empty. No messages, no news headlines, no angry posts from leaders. Your newsfeed is blank. Your social media is a ghost town. Your stomach feels tight. This isn't just quiet, it's like a big empty space. Then you see it. One single, simple message on every app, plain and clear. All political leaders have disappeared. No governments remain. You stare at the words, trying to understand. Disappeared? All of them? A joke, you think. Maybe a big computer trick or a movie ad. You wait for something to change, but the message stays there, cold and steady. Your heart starts to beat harder in the sudden, heavy silence. With slightly shaking fingers, you check your usual news websites. The pages load but look frozen. Some show error messages. Others show news anchors just sitting there, shocked and confused, saying nothing. Experts, usually full of opinions, stumble over their words. There are no press conferences, no emergency news, because you realize with a chill, there's no one left to say anything. A strange, nervous laugh escapes you. It's crazy. Then, after the shock, another feeling comes, relief. A big, almost guilty sense of freedom. No more boring speeches, no more ads trying to trick you, no more picking the lesser evil when you vote. For the first time in a long while, the world feels quiet, open, almost free. That heavy feeling of constant political fight seems to have just vanished, like a storm cloud finally gone. You go outside, the streets are calm, people are coming out of their homes, looking confused, worried, but also strangely curious. There are whispers, but no panic. No one's waving flags. What would they mean now? No one's talking about borders. The old power games seem to have just stopped. And the weirdest thing? The world doesn't fall apart. Nothing blows up. People are talking, showing each other the strange message on their phones, shrugging, looking around like they're seeing their streets for the first time. They go on with their day. A bit unsure, yes, very confused, but mostly calm. The corner store is open, the baker is baking, lights are on, water runs. Daily life for now just keeps going, even if it feels new and strange. A big question forms in your mind, a thought so surprising it almost scares you. Could this actually work? A world without politicians? Could all the fighting and control finally be over? Or is this just the quiet before a bigger storm? The silence, which felt so wrong at first, now holds a tiny bit of unbelievable hope. Chapter 2. The Dream Realized. Days turn into a week, then 2. You still can't quite believe it, but the world keeps spinning without any politicians. No governments giving orders, no elections making people pick sides, no complicated laws being forced on you. It's like a heavy blanket has been lifted, and life doesn't just go on, it actually seems to get better. It blossoms. You notice it in small ways. Those shouting matches on the bus about politics, gone. The angry faces on TV news, vanished. It feels like the whole world took a deep breath. No more empty promises made just to get votes. No more lies twisted to make one group look good and another bad. Nobody's knocking on your door asking for your vote, and those scary campaign ads are gone. Even news reporters seem more relaxed, just telling people what happened. What do I think is best for my street? You wonder. And it's not just you. People who used to argue all the time now talk things over, actually listening. You chat with your neighbor about fixing potholes, and no one asks whose party is to blame. You just ask, well, when can we fix it? No sides, just neighbors. The streets feel safer. Local police are just around, talking to people, helping out, like part of the community. People in your neighborhood actually met in the park and agreed on some basic ideas. Be good to each other, help when you can, play fair. Simple human stuff. Schools are changing too. Teachers can teach kids real history now, the good and the bad, without worrying about some government's official story. Children are learning about the world and different people, not just a one-sided version. You think about the past? All those wars, millions killed because leaders had different ideas or because of lines on a map. World War I, World War II, the Cold War, Vietnam, all the fighting. It all seemed to come from politics. Could it be that simple? You whisper. With no politics, maybe the main reason for all that fighting is just gone. Maybe the world never needed to be so messy. You see people working together. Farmers are sharing equipment. Resources are shared because people want to, not because a rule says so. When a problem comes up, like a bridge needing repairs, local people get together and figure it out. No fancy courts or lawyers. Some say this is real democracy. But you look around and think, maybe this is more than democracy. Maybe this is just freedom. Even nature seems happier. The local river is cleaner, the air smells fresher. Old forests are still standing. It's like the earth itself can relax. Of course, the world isn't perfect. People still disagree. There are still challenges. But the big difference is no one is trying to force their way on others using laws or power. There's no big stick anymore. And that feeling, no one holding that big stick, is truly incredible. You wake up each morning feeling like maybe, just maybe, people have finally grown up. Or maybe a tiny voice whispers in your mind, it just seems that way for now. Chapter 3. Cracks in the Wall. Time keeps moving. It's not just days or weeks anymore. Months have passed since all the politicians disappeared. The world still works without big governments, without old laws, without all those political systems. But something is different now. At first, it was small things. Things you might not have even paid attention to. You'd see a little more trash on the street one day, or notice people being a bit less patient with each other. Now, though, it's easy to see. Things are not like they were in those first hopeful weeks. You're standing in line at the bakery for your morning bread. It's a longer line than usual. Some supplies are getting a bit harder to find. Suddenly, a fight starts. One person shouts, "Hey, I was next!" Another yells back, "No, you weren't. I was here first." Their voices get louder. Before, maybe someone from the shop or even another customer would step in and help calm things down. Now people just look away, uncomfortable. There's no one official to decide who's right. There's no one with the authority to make sure things are fair. "Can't we just talk about this?" Someone mutters, but their voice is weak. People used to solve little problems by talking them out. Now their voices get louder, sharper. Soon you see a shove, then another. Hands are raised. The argument turns ugly. Right there in front of everyone, you feel a knot of worry in your stomach. This isn't how it was supposed to be. It's happening in bigger ways too. Remember those friendly local meetings in the park, where everyone agreed on basic ideas? Now the weekly neighborhood meeting to talk about needs like clean water or fixing roads is mostly just arguments. Solutions are few and far between. One group loudly demands that the limited water supply should only go to families who've lived in the neighborhood for a long time. Another group shouts just as loudly that everyone should have equal access, no matter how long they've been there. You try to say what you think, to suggest a compromise, but your voice gets lost in all the shouting. It hits you then. When there's no law or judge to decide, the loudest voice, or maybe the angriest one, often wins. New groups are starting to form. They have strong opinions, just like the old political parties, but this time, it feels different. They don't just want to talk, they want to be in charge, to dominate. One group calls itself the Guardians of Natural Justice. They walk around looking serious and important. Another one, the Silenced Voices, claims they're speaking for people who've been ignored. But really, each group seems to think they are the only ones who know what's best for everyone. You feel something new and dangerous growing in the air like a dark cloud. It's power, not power from some far-off government like before. This is power rising up from ordinary people, but it's wild and messy. No one is controlling it, and no one has to answer for how they use it. And then you remember something important, something you'd almost forgotten in the excitement of the early days. Politics, even with all its problems, did bring some kind of order. It had rules, even if they weren't always fair. Now, with no one to answer to, some people want to take all the control for themselves. They say they're doing it for freedom, but you look in their eyes and you think, no, you're doing it for yourselves. You start hearing stories from other towns and cities, carried by travelers or patchy internet messages. It's not good news. In some places, groups have formed with weapons. They're making up their own laws and forcing people to follow them. And who can stop them? There are no real laws anymore to say they can't. You can't help but look back to those first few weeks. The quiet streets, the peaceful nights, that amazing feeling of hope you had. It felt so real, so possible. Now, a cold question forms deep inside you. Were we really ready for all this freedom? Freedom without any politics at all? No one has an answer, but you feel it in your heart, a growing dread. The dream, that beautiful dream of a perfect, free world. Its walls are cracking, and you're scared of what might be waiting behind those cracks, something that could easily turn this dream into a living nightmare. Chapter 4. Return to the darkness. The nights aren't quiet anymore, far from it. Those first few months with their soft breezes and distant cricket songs feel like a forgotten dream. Now the darkness is filled with ugly sounds. You hear distant shouts that quickly turn into screams. Sometimes a sharp crack splits the air, a gunshot you've learned to recognize with a sickening lurch in your stomach. The tinkle of breaking glass follows, maybe from a shop window or someone's home. The gentle sounds of peace have been completely replaced by the soundtrack of fear. You don't go out after dark. Nobody does if they can help it. Walking the streets, even during the day, feels like taking a big risk. Your eyes are always scanning, your ears always listening for trouble. That feeling of safety you once cherished, the one that blossomed when the politicians vanished, it's gone. Even your own home, behind locked doors and drawn curtains, doesn't feel like a safe place anymore. Every unexpected noise outside makes you jump. Who's there? What do they want? You whisper to the empty rooms. This new world, the one everyone called freedom just a short while ago, is now just chaos. Pure, frightening chaos. There are no armies to call for help, no police force that everyone trusts. There are no laws to protect anyone. There are still a few people, good people, who try to talk things out, who still believe problems can be solved by sitting down and discussing them. But no one listens to them anymore. Their quiet voices are drowned out by angry shouts and the clatter of weapons. No one waits to agree on things. They just take. Those groups that used to argue in the local park meetings, the guardians of natural justice and the silenced voices, they're still around, but they're not just arguing with words now. They have weapons, clubs, knives. Some even have guns. They wear makeshift uniforms, rough clothes, all in the same color to show who they belong to. And they carry flags, crudely painted symbols on old sheets, marking their territory. You don't really know their names, or maybe the names keep changing, but you see what they're doing. They're splitting your neighborhood apart, block by block. One street is controlled by one group, the next by another. Crossing from one to the other feels like crossing an invisible, dangerous border. Now, to buy a loaf of bread, you need a piece of paper, a pass. This pass isn't from any official place. It's given out by one of these new armed groups, the ones who control the area around the bakery. It has their symbol on it. Getting the pass means you're, in a way, saying you accept their control. And if you refuse, if you try to argue to say you shouldn't need a pass just to buy food in your own neighborhood, you get shoved, you get threatened, or as you've heard happening to others, you get beaten, or worse. Each bite of bread tastes like fear. A deep, heavy sadness settles in your heart. It's not because one single person or government is ruling over you. It's because now it feels like everyone is trying to rule over you. Or at least everyone with a weapon or a loud gang. Whoever has the most power in that moment on that street corner makes the rules. Whoever holds the biggest gun or the sharpest knife becomes the leader. There's no discussion, no voting, just force. And a terrible thought hits you, one that makes you feel sick. A bad politician, one who was selfish or didn't care, was a dangerous thing. But this? No politics, no rules at all. This is a lawless hell. You remember the old days, before all this happened. You remember all the things people hated about politicians, the lies, the corruption, the broken promises. It was a bad system, a flawed system, no doubt about it. But even inside that broken system, there was something else. Something you didn't appreciate enough back then. There was structure. There was a kind of order. There was even sometimes a little bit of hope that things could change for the better, that you could vote someone out or protest for a new law. Now, none of that exists, just the rule of the strongest. You can't even find out what's truly happening in other places anymore. The reliable news channels, the independent reporters, they're gone. Either they were scared off or they joined one of the groups. Now each faction spreads its own stories, its own truth. One group says they're heroes fighting for the people. Another group says the first group is evil and they are the real heroes. And you don't know who or what to believe. Every night, a new rumor flies through the neighborhood, whispered in scared voices. Tonight, Group X is going to attack our street. Tomorrow, Unit Y says they're cutting off the power if we don't give them supplies. The day after, some new Council Z says everyone has to pay them taxes. Or else, you're so tired. Everyone you know is tired. Their faces are drawn, their eyes filled with worry. The whole world feels exhausted, worn down by fear and uncertainty. And deep down, in a place you try to ignore, you think something you never, ever imagined you would. Maybe, just maybe, having a good politician, even a flawed one, is better than having none at all. But it feels too late for that kind of thinking. The world wanted to burn its old laws, its old systems, and now it seems like it's burning itself in the very fire it started. Chapter 5. The Bitter Truth. You realize you're not the only one feeling this way. That heavy exhaustion, that constant hum of fear, that feeling of not knowing what tomorrow will bring, it's everywhere. You see it in the eyes of the people you pass on the street, in the tired slump of their shoulders. It seems the whole world has finally arrived at the same dark, weary place. This freedom everyone celebrated, it's turned into a kind of prison, one with no bars or walls, but a prison all the same, where everyone is trapped by the chaos. A hard lesson settles in your mind, a bitter truth. Absolute freedom, the kind where no one is responsible for anything, where there's no structure to hold things together, no balance. It doesn't lead to happiness, it just leads to a mess, to a world where the strong do whatever they want and the weak suffer. You find yourself thinking back to that very first day, the day all the politicians vanished. You remember that surprising feeling of joy, that spark of hope. You really believed with all your heart that the world had been cleaned up, that things would finally be better. But now, looking around at the fear and the disorder, the world doesn't feel cleansed. It just feels empty. Empty of order, empty of safety, empty of that bright hope you once had. One day you meet a small group of people. They gather in a quiet, hidden place in an old, abandoned library, ironically enough. They're not trying to rebuild buildings or fix roads, not yet. They're trying to rebuild something much harder to fix. Trust. Trust between people. Trust in the idea that things can be better than this. You find yourself drawn to them, to their quiet determination. They talk, and their words are careful, thoughtful. One of them, an older woman with kind eyes who used to be a teacher, looks at you and says, "We've been thinking, maybe this isn't working. Maybe it's time to try to rebuild some kind of structure. Maybe we can write down some rules again, simple ones that everyone agrees to. Maybe we can even choose a few people we trust to represent us, to help make decisions for the good of everyone." She looks at you, almost expecting you to argue, to shout about freedom like everyone else did a few months ago, but this time, for the very first time since this all began, you don't disagree. You just nod slowly. A strange feeling washes over you then. Not happiness, not exactly, but a kind of quiet peace. It's the peace that comes from finally understanding something important. You understand now. Power, when nobody is watching it, when it's completely unchecked, is far worse than even a bad government. It's more oppressive than any set of flawed laws. And politics, as messy and imperfect and frustrating as it always was, can actually be a tool, not a perfect tool, but a tool to keep society from completely falling apart, from turning into this every person for themselves nightmare. A sad truth settles in your heart, one you wish you'd understood much sooner. Maybe a perfect world, a world with no problems and no difficult choices, just doesn't exist. And maybe that's because people aren't perfect. We're emotional creatures. We can be greedy. We can get angry quickly. We all see things from our own side. And when you put imperfect people into a world with no rules at all, disaster is pretty much guaranteed. But you think, a new tiny spark lighting up inside you, what if those imperfect people learn? What if we learn how to choose more wisely this time? What if we finally understand that anyone who gets power needs to be watched carefully, needs to be held responsible? What if we all start taking responsibility for making things work instead of just hoping they'll fix themselves? If that could happen, then maybe, just maybe, having a good politician, someone who genuinely tries to do the right thing, is so much better than having no politics at all. You now believe something you used to argue against with all your heart. A world completely without politics, without any kind of system for making decisions together, can only be a beautiful dream if humans were angels, if we were all perfect. And since we're not, we have to be so careful with the choices we make, because a good leader, a good system, even a flawed one that people are working to improve, can help make the world a better, safer place. But a bad leader, or even worse, no system at all, no politics whatsoever, that can turn the world into a living hell, just like you've seen. So concludes our journey into the world without any politician. The story leaves us with a quiet, hopeful thought. Maybe this time we can learn to make the right choices. What reflections does this bring up for you about our own world and the choices we face? We'd love to hear your insights in the comments below. If you enjoyed this what if exploration and want to see more, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching.